Hello and welcome. For those that haven't seen me before, my name is John Caesar. I am the chairman of the board for the CSIA. This is my first time hosting this, so hope everything goes all right. But we're going to start out my first one here with a fun one. For those that can see, I might have some red eyes and I might be sniffling quite a bit. I'm dealing with some spring allergies, so 'tis the season for that. But today we're going to talk about when the best time to get your chimney swept is. And I won't drag it out too long. The answer is right now, the springtime. To break that down, we got to go backwards a little bit. So as chimney sweeps, we've kind of done a bad job of marketing why to call us. Because if you ask any person that doesn't think that we're Bert from Mary Poppins, ask them, what does a chimney sweep do? Why should you call them? One of the first things you'll get is chimney fires, right? Huge danger, very important thing to get your chimney swept for. However, what that leads people to believe is that if you don't use your fireplace or don't have a fireplace, that you don't need to get your chimney swept or inspected. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because there is a whole lot more that can happen to your chimney and a whole lot more reasons to get your chimney inspected than just a chimney fire. So right off the top, chimney fire is very dangerous. You definitely need to get your chimney swept and inspected annually if you use it. But if you don't use it, you still need to get your chimney inspected annually, right? So when most people call for a chimney sweep, they usually call maybe September. I'm in New Hampshire. We have a really long, very cold burning season. It's actually, the temperature is dropping now and it's May. The cold still won't leave us alone. So there's still people using their chimneys right now in New Hampshire. I know other parts of the country that's probably unheard of, but the Northeast, that's pretty common. So a lot of people will wait until August, September, and that's when they'll call for their chimney sweep. The problem with that is so isn't everybody else, right? A lot of homeowners call when it's time to start using it. We'll get calls at my company and they'll ask us, it'll be October, and they'll call us and say, hey, can you come out this week? I want to use it. It's going to get cold next week. If you wait until the fall or October, November, even by that point, most chimney companies in the United States are going to be booked out months. I'm talking, 6 to 8, 12, sometimes even into the spring of next year types of booking out. So the fall is not the best time to call for a chimney sweep. The best time to call is right now. As soon as the season's over, as soon as you've stopped using it, that is the time to call for a chimney sweep. And the reason for that is because the biggest danger to a chimney is not fire. Fire is a big danger. It can be one of the most catastrophic ones. But the most common thing that actually affects your chimney is water. So whether you have rain or you have snow, sleet, ice, whatever you have, everybody's got some type of water that affects their chimneys. A lot of people will assume that a brick chimney is strong enough to last forever, right? It's brick. It has to be. In reality, one brick can hold up to 1.5 cups of water, kind of like a sponge. It'll absorb that much water. So if you have a really mild winter, which is what we get a lot of here, we'll get a mild winter where it doesn't really snow a lot. It gets kind of cold at night, but it's kind of mild during the day. In reality, that is the worst thing for a chimney, because what you'll get ice, snow, rain soaking on the chimney, hitting the chimney either during the day or during the night. It'll be warm enough for that to absorb into the brick. And then at night, the chimney will freeze. The temperature drops low enough that all that water that's inside of it will freeze. The chimney, the brick, the masonry, the concrete will all start to pop and crack and split. Obviously, chimneys split right down the middle from freeze-thaw damage. So let me get back to my notes because I'll get way off track here. So the problem is the chimney's getting beat up all winter long. It's getting beat up all summer long as well, with water, snow, and ice affecting it, whether it's used or not. The big secret, I guess, with chimneys is that a chimney that is not used will actually deteriorate faster than one that is used, right? You think about all the water, all the snow that's soaking into these chimneys, all the masonry of it. And if the chimney's not being used, it's not warming up. It's staying that cold and wet all year round. It's going to deteriorate faster, because at least when the chimney's getting used, whether it's a fireplace or a wood stove or a boiler, whatever's going through it, at least some portion of that chimney is getting warming up through the chimney itself, drying it out even a little bit, right? So if the chimney is not being used and it's not warming up and it's taking on all that water, that's where serious masonry issues happen. which is something a lot of homeowners don't know. With Caesar Chimney, we did a trade show a few years ago now. And we had a nice corner booth set up. We were wearing the top hats and we were handing out cards to everybody. And I'm standing back and I'm listening to my employees as they're handing out information to homeowners. And what I heard a lot was, no thanks, we didn't use ours last year. No thanks, we didn't use it. No thanks, we didn't use it. Or no thanks, we don't have one, which is the next point, because a lot of people think chimney sweep for your wood stoves and your fireplaces, obviously, and you should. But in reality, the majority of chimney flues, at least here in New England, are used not for a wood burning appliance, but for the home heating system itself, right? Boilers, furnaces, water heaters vent into chimney flues. There's neighborhoods here. There's one right down the street. If you were to drive down the street, every single house has a chimney, but it's a single chimney. There's only one flue in it. And they don't have a wood stove. They don't have a fireplace, but they do have either an oil or gas furnace, an oil or gas water heater, or an oil and gas boiler, sometimes more than one. They'll have a boiler and a furnace, or a furnace and a water heater, some kind of combination. Those are also venting into chimneys. So when I was hearing people saying, I don't have a fireplace, I don't have a fireplace, I don't need you, that goes against exactly what we do. We do a lot more as a chimney sweep. We do a lot more than sweep chimneys. We repair them, we monitor them, we maintain them. And boiler flues, water heater flues, furnace flues actually deteriorate even faster than the regular wood stove or a fireplace. Because with the wood stove or a fireplace, you're going to get creosote. Creosote's going to build up inside the flue over time. That's what clogs the flue. That's what ignites. That's what gets a chimney fire. Home heating flues don't have that. Home heating flues have sulfur, carbon monoxide. They have gas condensating in the flue. Those gases, those toxic chemicals are actually absorbing into the inside of the chimney and rotting it from the inside out. So if you have a boiler, you have a furnace, you have a water heater, and you've never thought of having to call a chimney sweep, you should. Those flues need to be inspected every single year because they will deteriorate from the outside water and from the inside water and gases as well. Here in New Hampshire, we find flues all the time where the flues are rotted completely through. They're in a pile at the bottom of the chimney itself. And when we go to these homes to talk to homeowners, we'll usually be there for a wood stove or a fireplace. That's why they called us. And we'll say, do you have another flue? They said, yeah, it's for the boiler. Yeah, it's for the furnace. And we'll say, can we take a look at that? And they'll usually say something along the lines of, the HVAC guy already checked it this year. He was just here last week. He was here last month. They already took care of that. HVAC companies generally don't inspect the flue itself. They will inspect the appliance. They'll tune it, they'll calibrate it, they'll check all the parts on the actual appliance itself. But HVAC companies rarely look past where it goes into the wall. Some HVAC companies, some homeowners don't even realize that when that pipe goes into the wall, it is venting into a chimney flue. Some don't. And I want to say that too, just because you have a boiler furnace, if you don't have an actual chimney, some of the appliances are what's called direct vent, or they'll go into PVC piping, or they'll go through a vent on the wall. They don't always go into one, but if you have a masonry chimney and you have a boiler furnace water heater, check with your HVAC company, call a chimney sweep company, because chances are it does go into a chimney flue. But the reason I'm saying all this is when we come out as chimney professionals to sweep your chimney, what we're actually doing is inspecting it first. That goes by national standard that we follow. We have to inspect every flue that we sweep, and we're inspecting every chimney to make sure that the chimney can function on top of being swept. Sweeping only happens if it needs it. You have some people that will burn really clean or not enough to the point that the flue might not even need to be swept every year, which is also a danger. Well, homeowners say, oh, well, I have it swept every 3 years. That's great, but it still needs to be inspected every year, right? I try to come up with analogies for things to make it easier to digest. And one of them is most of us have to get our cars inspected every year, or our HVAC has to be inspected every year. My favorite is dentist, right? My dentist and chimney sweeps have a lot in common. I've talked about this before. We both deal with crowns and brushes, and I'm losing my train of thought. Crowns and brushes, drills. And I was talking to him about regular maintenance on our teeth. We brush our own teeth, right? We maintain it all year round, but we still need to have a professional look at it every single year, at least twice a year with dentists. Same thing with your chimney. Even if you sweep it, even if you have the brushes and you can go in, you can clean out the flue, the chimney still needs to be inspected every year because there's things to look for that general maintenance is not going to take care of. All that to say, if you wait until the fall to call a chimney sweep, one, the schedule is going to be packed. We're going to be so booked out that if you call usually Labor Day, first week of September, generally we can't get to you. Our next opening might be end of October, Halloween. Happens all the time. If you wait until Halloween to call, we won't see you till the new year. And that frustrates a lot of people because they expect, as you rightly should, that if you call for service, you get it tomorrow, right? I had an issue with my HVAC and I called up the HVAC company and they said 3 days. I'm like, I can't wait 3 days. I don't have any heat and it's in the winter. Like, we're really sorry. That's as soon as we can get out. I called another one. So I get it as a consumer wanting to get your service sooner because you need to use it. But if you wait until the fall to call for a chimney company, you're going to end up waiting. And well, yeah, you're going to end up waiting most times. The other problem is, let's say you get an appointment, you get in soon enough, you called maybe July, maybe August, and your appointment is August, September, somewhere in there. Especially in New England, a lot of East Coast states, a lot of the northern states, a lot of the West Coast northern states. If you call too late in the season and we find masonry issues, you have cracked bricks, you have missing mortar, you have a crack in your crown. If there's some kind of masonry issue with the chimney itself and we find it in the fall, most times we can't fix it till the next year because it gets too cold. There has to be a certain temperature in order for you to do masonry work. So if we find these issues, a lot of times we're going into a homeowner's house in September, October. They're calling just for an annual sweeping. We show up when we find freeze-thaw damage. We find that the chimney has cracked or split, or joints have started popping out, bricks have started decaying, something like that. We come down and we say we need to rebuild it. The chimney can't function as it is. We need to rebuild the chimney. We'll give you an estimate, but we're so booked out already and winter is coming so fast, the temperature is dropping, that we can't fix it until next year. And a lot of people get upset at that. We can't do masonry if it's too late in the year. So if you've waited that long, if you've waited until the cold is almost upon you to call for a chimney sweep and they find masonry issues, now that chimney has to go through 2 years, 2 different winters before it can get fixed. It can get so bad. I've given estimates for work that I found in August, September. I said, yeah, we'll get to it next year. We'll take out these, 20 bricks and repoint some joints. We show up the next winter and now it's a full rebuild. We can't even save the chimney because so much more damage happened over that long winter that now the price has doubled or even tripled in some cases. So if you call earlier in the year, one, we can get the chimney taken care of. We can check it out and make sure if it needs to be swept, if it's good to go. Two, if we find any issues at that spring, summer appointment, we have time to fix it. It's something that if we find an issue right now in May and the chimney needs to be rebuilt, we're doing it in June. We're booked out enough where we can get it done while the weather still permits it. So thank you. I just got that comment there. Incredibly educational, John. Thank you for all you do for our industry. My pleasure. I live and breathe this. I never thought I'd be sitting here talking about chimneys on a live thing like this, but here we are. It's an incredible industry and I'm happy to be a part of it. That's why I was excited to do stuff like this, is because when I started my company, it wasn't just a case of why call a chimney sweep or why do you need your chimney swept? It was, are there even chimney sweeps? People didn't even know. There's people that I knew 5-6 years into doing this and I tell them I was a chimney sweep and they laughed. They're like, no, really? Like, what do you do? So that's what this is all about, is getting the education out to homeowners, getting it out. So one, people know we exist, and two, they know why they need us. But that's the biggest thing. If you have a chimney, a masonry chimney, or your friends have one and you hear them talking about maybe leaking that you have on the roof or something going on with the chimney itself, definitely have them call a CSIA certified chimney sweep to come out and take a look at that chimney, which is actually the next thing I was going to talk about. I kind of worked my way back to that, lost my place, found it. Leaking, right? Chimneys leak a lot. And most times when you get leaking in your roof, a lot of people go right to the roofers. They say, hey, we need to get our roof looked at. It's leaking. If the leaking is anywhere near a chimney or even down slope, right? If you have a chimney and the leak is below the chimney or near it in any way, definitely call a chimney professional. There are some people out there that they hear about a chimney leak and they go, okay, let's put a cap on it. Let's, put some sealant on it and you're good to go. In reality, if you have a leak in your chimney, it's a very, very hard thing to figure out because it's hard to tell where it's coming from. Some of these chimneys can be massive. We have some 5-6 foot wide chimneys. All of those bricks, all that cement, all that mortar, all that flashing, it's hard to find the exact spot where there's a hole, right? If there was something flat and you saw a bubble, you're like, oh, the leak's coming in there. It's easy enough to fix. The crown on a chimney is going to absorb water and be cracked. The flue itself can let water inside of the chimney. The bricks, like we talked about before, they're very porous. They're going to soak up a lot of water. That water is going to drain somewhere. The mortar itself, the mortar is going to wear. There's going to be cracks and splits in the mortar, letting water inside. And then the flashing itself. There's a lot of real estate from that roof up that could allow water into the chimney itself and possibly the home. So if you're sitting in your living room and you look up and you see a drip above your fireplace, there's no telling, one, just because that leak is coming in on this side of the chimney, let's say, that the leak is coming into the chimney on that side as well. The leak could be coming in on the far side, working its way through the chimney, coming out over here, because water is going to find the path of least resistance. So if you see a leak, that's not a small issue. If water's made it that far into your home, into your living room, and it's dripping anywhere in the fireplace itself, in the basement even, I've seen leaking down that far. Definitely in the attic. If you get leaking coming from anywhere, you need a full inspection on that chimney, because what we need to do is get up there and find out, first of all, where could the water be coming in? Sometimes it's as easy as, oh, we got some cracked mortar. A lot of times it's not. We have to check everything from the crown, the flues, the bricks, the mortar, the flashing, make sure all of that is intact, and then fix all of it in most cases. It's really easy to say, oh, well, that's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, whatever it is, that's a lot to do. Let's do one or two of those things. Let's only fix the crown and the flashing, or let's only do a cap and some repointing. Let's nickel and dime it. I've done that before with my company. Doesn't always work. And then the angry phone calls start coming in, right? Because we give the impression that we fixed it. We went up, we put a cap on it. We went up and we sealed the flashing, or we replaced the flashing, and the chimney still leaks. And now we look like we didn't do our job. But in reality, that might not have been what was actually leaking the whole time. So I've rushed into those jobs trying to put a cap on, try to seal flashing, thinking I know it all. In reality, a chimney is going to leak anywhere, all over the place sometimes. So if you have a leak in your chimney, that's something that it needs to be addressed soon, and it needs to be addressed right. Everything from the roof up needs to be checked, needs to be repaired if needed, because once water gets in, there's no telling where it goes. Just because it came in the chimney and came out above your fireplace doesn't mean that it didn't travel further down a beam somewhere and it's in a wall. Doesn't mean it's not under carpet somewhere. A friend of mine owns a remediation company. He's told me stories about mold that just makes my skin crawl. That is not fun. So water is a severe issue, and that is the biggest threat to a chimney. We talk a lot about how water is going to hurt the chimney itself. Water gets into the crown, attacks the bricks. Water gets into the masonry, starts rotting out the flue, starts getting into the flashing. The water will hurt the chimney itself, but if that water finds a way out of the chimney, now you've got walls and ceiling and paint and carpet and God knows what else that water could affect, which is why you need your chimney inspected every year. Just because it worked well last year, you didn't have any leaks last year, time and time again, we get in the middle of a winter. Somebody calls up, they haven't had their chimney inspected in 5, 6, 7 years because they didn't use it, because they didn't know that they needed to. But then they call us because now there's a drip in their living room. As soon as the sun comes out and the snow on the roof starts melting, now they've got a drip and they don't know where it's coming from. And now we have to go out middle of February, March, middle of snow and cold. We get guys up skating around on a roof trying to find where this hole is in this chimney or the flashing. It's very dangerous work. And usually now the price has gone up, or the schedule is further out, or we just won't go. That happens a lot too, where it's too cold and it's too just cold and miserable that we don't send people out. All the more reason to have your chimney inspected every single year. We've got to get that word out to as many people as we can, that it's not just call because you used it or call because you are scared of a chimney fire, but it's got to be inspected every single year. Calling to have your chimney inspected because of a chimney fire is like getting your tires rotated for fear of an accident. Yes, that could happen, and yes, that would be terrible, but that's not the reason you do it. You do it because it needs to be done every single year on time, or the car doesn't work. Same thing as a chimney. So annual inspections is the big thing. It's got to be every year. And when you call, now is the time to do it. When we talk about scheduling, if you wait until the fall to get it done, the schedule is going to be booked out weeks and weeks and months and months. But generally, if you call during the summer or the spring, the schedule is a little bit lighter because homeowners don't know that now is the time to call. So the schedule is generally a lot lighter. With all of our repeat customers, what we do is if we've swept your chimney, we tell you to call back in the spring months. We'll give discounts. We'll give preferred rates. Other companies do certain things to kind of drive that thought process to call back in May, call back in June. And we get a lot of weird looks. They'll call us out in November and we're out there trying to sweep the chimney, get it ready for Thanksgiving. And we tell them, hey, next year when you call us back in the spring or the summer, you get better rates, you get better schedule. And they kind of look at us like, why would I call in the spring? So many reasons, right? And I'll say right to them, how long did you wait for your appointment? Oh, we waited 6 to 8 weeks for you to come out. If you call in May or June, maybe 1 or 2 weeks at best, maybe 3 weeks on a busy month, but we can find time to get to you. And plus, we like working better in the summer and the spring, especially in New England. I know a lot of people that are watching further south. They're like, what are you talking about? That's great weather. Not up here. It's not. You get north and you get on a roof in January, February, March. We'll do it ish, but it's not fun. But yeah. This is the time to call. Spring, summer, the later you wait, you'll get an appointment. Might be more expensive, might be harder to get the appointment, might be longer wait. And then when the technician gets out there, if he finds anything wrong with the appliance or the chimney itself, you might have to say, don't use it. Which, once again, I'm speaking from New England up here, but we rely on our chimneys quite a bit. If the boiler can't be used, if the furnace can't be used, if the water heater can't be used, fireplaces, wood stoves, pellet stoves, gas stoves, whatever's in there, if the chimney can't function and can't contain those gases, then we tell people you shouldn't use this, right? We can't tell you not to use it. As a chimney professional, we don't have the authority or the licensing or the power to say, shut it down, don't use it. It's condemned. We can't do that. We can recommend a lot. And that leads to two different issues. If I go out to somebody's house and it's too late in the year and I can't fix it this year, and I write on my report, should not be used, I'll look right at a homeowner and say, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, X, Y, and Z has happened to the point that the chimney should not be used until it's been repaired. But I can't force them to. And the most dangerous thing is if a chimney is damaged to the point that it shouldn't be used and you need it for your heat, whether it's your heating appliance or it's a wood stove or it's a fireplace or whatever, and it's continually used while it's damaged, that's when really serious things can happen. And a lot of people will. I've seen it myself. Go into a customer's house and say, yeah, you shouldn't use this. There's a cracked flue. There's bricks that are falling. We'll get to it next year. I'm in the van doing my paperwork, look up, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney. I can't fault them. We live in New England. You need heat or life is not fun. So who am I to say you can't heat your house in the winter? A lot of homes up here depend on wood, not just as supplemental, but some people heat their entire home with wood during the winter. Definitely their furnaces and their boilers. So yeah, Cody says we've been using them more and more each year here in the South. Yeah, I've heard that. I actually went down and visited Cody. Was it last year, 2 years ago? My years are running together. Dallas, Texas is where Cody's from. And you wouldn't think that they get cold down there, and they usually don't. But my flight actually got delayed because of an ice storm. And I had to wait an extra day. And by the time I got down, Dallas was completely shut down. They were recovering from it, but they had like an inch or so of ice down there. It was unbelievable to see what ice does. But the cold is definitely creeping down a lot further south than you would think it is. I didn't think I'd ever, I was trying to get away from the cold in the winter. I'm trying to get away from New Hampshire, and I go to Dallas and deal with ice. So maybe I brought it. Sorry, Cody. But yeah, lost my whole train of thought again. I tend to talk myself into circles. Have your chimney inspected every year, even if you use it, regardless of what fuel it is, which is something else I've heard people talk about. Oh, I have oil, it doesn't need to be swept. Or, oh, I have gas, so it burns cleaner. I've even heard people tell me pellet stoves didn't need to be swept. They're like, oh, yeah, it's pellet, it's fine, it doesn't need to be swept. every appliance that burns a solid fuel needs to be swept. If it's wood, pellet, coal, it's going to build up in that flue. It has to be swept as needed. We won't know if it needs to be swept until we've inspected it. Don't wait until you get smoke billowing back into your house to go, oh, I need to call a chimney company, because by then we're too busy anyway to get out as soon as you need us to. But if you burn wood, pellet, coal, have your chimney inspected every year. If that builds up inside of that flue, it could block it. Every time you build up, let's say you have a 6-inch round flue, you get an inch of buildup on the outside. That flue is now not 5 inches. You would think it is, but if it's an inch per side, that 6-inch flue is now working at a 4-inch capacity. It's being choked. And when you choke solid fuel, you create more smoke, which creates more creosote, and the problem just keeps getting worse. One of the radio commercials I did here in New Hampshire for my company said something like, people don't call a chimney company until they get a brick in their yard, a leak in their ceiling, or smoke in their living room. Then they call us. That is not the right time to wait and call a chimney company. If you're seeing bricks in your yard, or leaks in your living room, or smoke in your room, or funny smells, or a chimney fire, or something out of the ordinary, you have waited entirely too long to call a chimney company. Now the price for the repairs is going to be through the roof because of how much damage has been done or has led up to the problem. And it's going to be harder to get a hold of us. Annual inspections are the most important thing you can do if you have a chimney, especially if you don't use it. If you know somebody that has a chimney and they don't use it, they maybe got candles in there, they got it boarded up. Oh yeah, we don't do that anymore, but the chimney is still sticking out of the roof. Please have them call a CSIA certified sweep to come out and inspect that chimney, because it's been just soaking up water and God knows what else all this time, building up in there, and who knows what's going on inside of it. Yeah, I'm almost out of time here. Just been talking circles. I think I've hit every note, but just to recap, have your chimney inspected every year on time, like you would with your car, your teeth, or your HVAC equipment. Call a chimney company, have a sweep come out and inspect it, make sure everything still is good. Know that water is going to eat that chimney whether you use it or not. And if you didn't use it and it didn't heat up, that chimney is staying cold and it's staying wet and it's going to deteriorate faster. If you did use it, definitely have a CSIA certified sweep come out and inspect that fluid. Make sure either it needs to be swept or just make sure the chimney is in good working condition. But, and boilers, furnaces, water heaters. If you have a utility flue, you have a whole house heating system, something plugged into that chimney, and it's been venting and it has never been checked other than an HVAC professional, call a CSIA certified sweep to come out and check that flue and make sure that it is still intact. But whatever the reason you call for, call annually, but call early. Call early enough that we can get out there, we can have good weather to work in, and if we catch any issues that need to be repaired, you can get that fixed before the cold comes back. And that's all I got. Thank you all for tuning in. Spread the word. Let everybody know if they have a chimney to give a CSI certified sweep a call. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye now. Hello.